My daughter was getting married, and when I asked when the wedding would be, my son-in-law said it had already happened. They didn't tell me because it was only for important people and I wasn't one of them. But when they asked me to pay the rent, I did the unexpected. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who'd become invisible to her own child. But here I am, 60 years old, sitting in my small apartment with a cup of tea that's gone cold, wondering where everything went wrong. My name is Patricia, and I spent 35 years working as an accountant. Not the glamorous kind you see in movies, but the kind who sits in a cramped office double-checking numbers until your eyes blur. Every paycheck, I'd save a little more. Every bonus went straight into the account I'd opened the day my son was born. When my husband died 10 years ago, something broke inside me that never quite healed. Heart attack at 52. One day he was laughing at dinner, the next he was gone. My son was 20 then, still finding his way. We grieved together but differently. He threw himself into work, any work he could find. I threw myself into making sure he'd never struggle the way we had. I had dreams once. A little house in the countryside with a garden where I could grow tomatoes. Weekend trips to places I'd only seen in magazines. But every time I looked at those travel brochures, I'd think about my son. What if he needed something? So the brochures went in the trash, and the money stayed in the bank. He met her 4 years ago at a coffee shop where he was working between jobs. She came in every morning, always ordered the same complicated drink with extra foam. He said she had this energy about her, like she was going places. I wanted to be happy for him. The first time he brought her to meet me, she smiled with all her teeth but not with her eyes. She talked about her business plans. She was going to open a boutique, or maybe start a catering company. The details kept changing, but the enthusiasm stayed the same. My son looked at her like she'd hung the moon. "Mom, isn't she amazing?" he asked me later. "She seems very ambitious," I said carefully. I didn't say what I was thinking, that dreams without action are just fantasies. But I smiled and told him I was happy for him, because that's what mothers do. Within 6 months, they'd moved in together. He asked if I could help with the security deposit. Just this once, just to get them started. The apartment was nice, probably nicer than they needed. I wrote the check for $4,000 and told myself it was an investment in his happiness. She quit her job 3 months after they moved in. The boutique plan had fallen through. She needed time to regroup, to figure out her next move. My son's receptionist salary at the dental office barely covered his car payment and insurance. That's when the calls started coming more frequently. Could I help with the rent this month? The washing machine broke. Could I cover a new one? The TV was ancient, and they needed something better. Each time I said yes. Each time I transferred the money and told myself this would be the last time, but it never was. I kept a detailed ledger, not because I planned to ask for repayment, but because I'd been an accountant for too long not to track where money went. Rent, $3,000 a month. Appliances, $8,000 over 2 years. His emergency appendectomy when insurance didn't cover everything, $12,000. Furniture, groceries, car repairs, birthday gifts for her family members I'd never met. The numbers added up quietly, like snow accumulating on a roof you don't realize is about to collapse. My son would call every few weeks, always cheerful. "How are you, Mom? We're doing great." But the exciting projects never materialized. And I kept writing checks, kept transferring money, kept telling myself that this was what love looked like. Then, 6 months ago, he called with news that made him sound happier than I'd heard in years. "Mom, we're getting married! Can you believe it?" My heart should have soared. Instead, there was this small, cold weight in my chest. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Have you set a date?" "Not yet, but soon. We're thinking something small and intimate. Her family's really excited." "I'm excited too," I said. "Listen, Mom, about the wedding. We're going to need some help with costs. Nothing crazy, but you know how these things add up. Maybe $20,000? That should cover everything. Venue, catering, her dress. We want it to be perfect. $20,000. My entire remaining savings from the sale of the house my husband and I had bought when we were newlyweds. The house I'd sold because the memories hurt too much and because I thought my son might need the money someday. "Let me think about it," I said. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I knew we could count on you." After we hung up, I sat in my chair and looked at the ledger. $252,300. That's what I'd given them over 4 years. That's what my 35 years of careful saving, of denied dreams and deferred happiness had amounted to. And I'd said yes to all of it because I loved my son, and because I thought that's what mothers were supposed to do. I had no idea that I was about to learn exactly what I was worth to the people I'd sacrificed everything for. I spent 3 days thinking about that $20,000. 3 days staring at my bank account, doing the math over and over. If I gave them the money, I'd have maybe $8,000 left. $8,000 between me and complete destitution after a lifetime of work. But he was my son, and it was his wedding. On the 4th day, I called him. My hand shook as I dialed, which was ridiculous. This was my child. But something felt different now. The phone rang 4 times before someone picked up. Hello? It was her voice, not my son's. Hi, it's Patricia. Is my son there? I wanted to talk to him about the wedding. There was a pause. A long one. I could hear muffled voices in the background, like she'd covered the phone with her hand. Actually, about that, her voice had changed. Cooler. More distant. The wedding already happened. 2 days ago. The world tilted. I sat down hard on my kitchen chair. What? Yeah, it was beautiful. Really intimate, you know. We decided to keep it small. Just the important people. Just the important people. The words hung in the air like smoke. I don't understand. I thought, look, Patricia, I need to go. We're unpacking gifts, but thanks for offering to help. We ended up keeping costs down anyway. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding the phone for maybe 10 minutes, not moving, barely breathing. The kitchen clock ticked above me. Outside, someone's dog barked. Normal sounds in a world that had just stopped making sense. My son got married. My only child. And nobody told me. Not only did nobody tell me, they deliberately excluded me. 2 days ago, while I was grocery shopping and watching old movies, my son was getting married without me. I tried calling him. It went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. On the 3rd try, I left a message. Sweetheart, it's Mom. I talked to your wife. She said you got married? I'm confused. Can you call me back? Please? He didn't call that day. Or the next. On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened social media and searched for her profile. We weren't friends on there. She'd never accepted my request from 2 years ago. But her privacy settings were loose enough that I could see her recent posts. And there it was. Album after album of wedding photos. My son in a crisp navy suit, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. Her in a white dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, surrounded by flowers and lights and people laughing. Her parents, beaming. Her siblings, dressed up and holding champagne glasses. Her grandmother in the front row dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I scrolled through 47 photos. 47 moments of my son's most important day. The ceremony. The first kiss. The first dance. Cutting the cake. Toasts. Hugs. Joy. I wasn't in a single one. There were photos of people I'd never met. Her cousin who apparently gave a hilarious speech. Her college roommate who caught the bouquet. Even their mailman made it into a group shot. But not me. Not the woman who'd raised him alone for 10 years after his father died. Not the woman who'd given them $250,000 over 4 years. Not even a mention in the captions. I saved that phrase from one of the posts. Surrounded by the people who matter most. I wasn't one of them. At 11 p.m., I was still scrolling when my phone finally rang. His name lit up the screen. Mom, hey. Sorry I didn't call back sooner. It's been crazy. You got married. My voice came out flat. Yeah, it was amazing. Really last minute. You know how these things happen. We just wanted something simple and why wasn't I invited? Silence on the other end. Then, it wasn't like that, Mom. It was really small, super intimate. I saw the photos. There were at least 50 people there. Well, yeah, but mostly her family. They're really close and I'm your mother. I know, Mom, but... He sighed, and in that sigh I heard frustration, like I was being difficult. Look, it just worked out this way. Okay, we'll do something with you later. Dinner or whatever. Dinner or whatever. To celebrate the wedding, I wasn't important enough to attend. Did you ever plan to tell me? That's not fair. We were going to tell you. We just needed some time to... To what? Enjoy being married without your embarrassing mother around? Mom, come on. Don't make this into something it's not. But it was something. It was everything. It was the final proof that all those years, all that money, all those sacrifices, none of it mattered. I was a bank account. A safety net. Not family. Not someone who mattered. Not one of the important people. I have to go, I said. Mom, wait. I hung up. Then I turned off my phone and sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by photos of other people's mothers who'd been deemed worthy of attending their children's weddings. And for the first time in 4 years, I started to get angry. The anger didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like water filling a bathtub. For 3 days, I went through my routine in a fog. I made coffee I didn't drink. I watched television I didn't see. I picked up the phone to call him a dozen times and set it back down. On the 4th day, I called my old friend from work, the one I'd lost touch with because I was always too busy helping my son, always too broke from supporting him to go out. "Patricia! Oh my God, it's been forever!" Just hearing her voice made something crack inside me. "Can we meet? I need to talk to someone." We met at a diner near her house. I ordered tea and didn't touch it. She ordered pie and pushed it around her plate while I talked. I told her everything. The money, the years of support, the wedding, the exclusion, the phrase that kept echoing, just the important people. She didn't interrupt. When I finally ran out of words, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Patricia, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "You taught him that this is okay. Every time you said yes when you should have said no, you taught him that you don't matter, that you're just there. Like a utility. He's my son. I know, but honey, he's also a grown man who just got married without inviting his mother. A grown man who's been taking your money for years. That's not love. That's not even basic respect." I wanted to argue, to defend him. But sitting there in that booth, I realized she was right. I'd spent 4 years being a doormat, and I'd done it so thoroughly that my own son didn't see me as a person anymore. I was just mom, always there, always giving, never important enough to matter. "What do I do?" I asked. She squeezed my hand. "You stop. You just stop." I went home and pulled out my ledger. I spread it out on my kitchen table and really looked at it. $4,000 for the security deposit, $3,000 a month for rent, 48 months. $144,000, $8,000 for appliances, $12,000 for his surgery, $6,000 for furniture, $15,000 for groceries and utilities, $23,000 for car payments and repairs, $40,000 for miscellaneous expenses, $252,300. I sat there staring at that number until the light outside changed from afternoon to evening. That was my retirement, my security, my future. And I'd handed it over piece by piece, because I thought that's what love looked like. But love goes both ways. Love doesn't exclude you from the most important day of someone's life. A week passed. Then 10 days. I didn't call him. He didn't call me. On day 12, my phone rang at 9 p.m. His name on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" He sounded cheerful, casual, like nothing had happened. "I'm fine," I said carefully. "That's good. Listen, I'm calling because we've got a bit of a situation. The rent was due last week, and with the wedding expenses, we're stretched pretty thin. Could you cover us this month?" There it was. The real reason for the call. Not to apologize, not to explain, just to ask for money. I looked at my ledger, still spread out on the table. "Actually," I said, my voice calm, almost pleasant, "I only help important people. And I'm not one of those, remember?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "Mom, come on. Don't be like that." "Like what? I'm just using the words your wife used. It was just for important people. I wasn't important enough for your wedding, so I assume I'm not important enough to pay your bills either." "That's not—" "Mom, you're being ridiculous. This is completely different." "Is it?" "Yes. The wedding was— Look, it was complicated, but we need help right now. The landlord is threatening to—" "That sounds serious," I interrupted. "Maybe you should ask one of the important people to help you." "Mom!" His voice rose, panic creeping in. "Are you seriously going to let us get evicted because your feelings are hurt?" "My feelings are hurt. Like I'd stubbed my toe. I've given you $252,300 over the past 4 years, I said. I have a detailed record of every cent. And you couldn't even tell me you were getting married. You deliberately excluded me. Your wife told me to my face that I wasn't important enough to be there. She didn't mean it like that. Then how did she mean it?" He had no answer. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done being used. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. You want money? Get it from someone who matters to you, because clearly that's not me. You're being incredibly selfish right now. We're family. Family invites each other to weddings." I hung up before he could respond. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat at my kitchen table. For the first time in years, I felt free. The calls started the next morning. 7 missed calls before I even woke up. Texts filling my screen. His wife's number appeared too, which was new. She'd never called me directly before. I made coffee and ignored them all. Around noon, my friend called. "Just checking on you. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected," I said. There was no guilt, no second guessing, just a strange, light feeling, like I'd set down something heavy. Good. Don't let him guilt you back into it. I won't. But as the messages kept coming, increasingly desperate, then angry, then desperate again, I realized saying no once wasn't enough. They'd keep asking. Eventually, if I didn't do something permanent, I'd be right back where I started. That evening, I sat down at my computer. I'd kept handwritten records, but this needed to be official, professional, undeniable. I worked for 6 hours, inputting every transaction, every rent payment with the date and amount, every appliance with receipt numbers, every grocery run, utility payment, car repair, the emergency room visit, the furniture deliveries, even Christmas gifts for her family. When I was done, I had 48 months of financial support, itemized and dated. At the top, financial assistance provided January 2021, December 2024. At the bottom, total $252,300. I printed it on crisp white paper, 10 pages of proof that I wasn't crazy. This was real money. This was my life. Then I did something unthinkable a week ago. I called a lawyer. His office was small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a tax service. He was maybe 50, with kind eyes. "So," he said after I'd explained everything, "you want to protect what you have left?" "Yes, I want to make sure they can't come after me for more." He looked at my financial statement, nodding. "You kept excellent records. Here's the situation. These were gifts legally. You can't force repayment without a written agreement, but you can protect your remaining assets. I'd recommend a trust, changing your will, and establishing clear boundaries." "How much?" "About $3,000 for everything. $3,000. But losing another $200,000 felt like more. "Let's do it." Over 2 weeks, I met with him 3 times. We set up a trust for my remaining savings. We updated my will. Everything would go to charity now. We changed my banking passwords. I even changed the locks on my apartment. The calls stopped by day 5. I figured they'd either found help elsewhere or found a way to make it work. Then, 3 weeks after our last call, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. My son stood there, looking terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. The old instinct kicked in. My baby needs help. I took a breath and opened the door but kept the chain on. "Mom, please. We need to talk. I think we've said everything. We're being evicted. The landlord gave us until Friday. We have nowhere to go." Part of me wanted to ask about the important people, but I didn't. "You have 2 days to figure something out. That's more time than you gave me to prepare for not being invited to your wedding. Mom, please. I made you something." I closed the door, unlatched the chain, and opened it again, holding the printed statement. "This is a record of every dollar I've given you. $252,300. I want you to have it. Not because I expect repayment, but because I want you to see exactly what you threw away." He took the papers with shaking hands. "I also want you to know that I've protected my assets. Everything is in a trust now. My will has been changed. Even if something happens to me, you won't get anything. That money will go to people and organizations that actually value what I have to give. Mom, you can't." "I can, and I have. I've also changed my locks. Your key won't work anymore." His face crumpled. "You're really doing this? You're choosing money over your own son?" A week ago, that would have destroyed me. But now, looking at this man who'd taken everything and still treated me like I didn't matter, I felt nothing but calm. "No," I said quietly. "You chose money over your mother when you took $250,000 and couldn't even tell me you were getting married. When you let your wife call me unimportant. When you called me selfish for being hurt. I'm not choosing money. I'm choosing myself. Finally." I stepped back and closed the door. Through it, I heard him calling my name, then footsteps retreating. I sat on my couch and waited for the guilt to come. It didn't. Instead, there was just quiet. Just peace. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. I didn't hear from them for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of silence that felt strange at first, then peaceful, then normal. I fell into a new routine, or maybe an old one, from before my son met her. I went to the library, I took walks in the park. I had coffee with my friend from work once a week. She asked about him sometimes, carefully, like she was afraid I'd break. Do you know what happened after the eviction? No, I said. And I'm okay with that. It was true. There was a time when not knowing would have eaten me alive, when I would have driven by their apartment just to check, or called mutual acquaintances to find out. But that person felt like someone else now. Someone who'd confused self-sacrifice with love. The news came anyway, through an unexpected source. I was at the grocery store reaching for a can of soup when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Patricia? I turned. It was her mother. The woman who'd been front and center in all those wedding photos. Dabbing at her eyes while her daughter got married. The woman whose family I'd bought Christmas gifts for, expensive things they'd specifically requested. Oh, hello. She looked uncomfortable, shifting her shopping basket from one arm to the other. I just wanted to say, I heard what happened, with the wedding and the money and everything. I wanted you to know that I didn't know they weren't inviting you. If I had known, I would have said something. I doubted that, but I appreciated the gesture. It's in the past, I said. They're not doing well, she continued, and I could hear the judgment in her voice. Not judgment of them, judgment of me. They had to move, lost their apartment. They're in a terrible neighborhood now, and they both have to work multiple jobs just to make rent. She said it like it was my fault. Like I was supposed to feel guilty. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Not sorry enough to help, but sorry that it had come to this. Sorry that my son had made choices that led him here. My daughter is cleaning offices at night. Your son is working retail. They're struggling, Patricia. So am I said quietly. I'm 60 years old, living on a fixed income, trying to rebuild my savings after giving them $250,000. We're all struggling. The difference is I didn't exclude them from my life and then ask them for money. Her face flushed. Family is supposed to help each other. You're absolutely right. Family is supposed to help each other. Family is also supposed to invite each other to weddings. I walked away before she could respond, my hands shaking slightly as I pushed my cart. But it wasn't guilt making them shake. It was anger. Anger that even now, even after everything, people expected me to be the one who gave, the one who sacrificed, the one who put everyone else first. At home, I thought about what she'd said. They'd lost the apartment. They were both working multiple jobs, living in a bad neighborhood. Part of me, the old part, the mother part, wanted to call, wanted to help, wanted to make it better, but I didn't, because helping wouldn't make it better. It would just teach them that they could treat me however they wanted, and I'd still be there with my wallet open. Instead, I did something I'd been putting off. I went through the photos on my phone and deleted every picture of the wedding I'd saved that terrible night when I'd scrolled through her social media. I deleted his number from my favorites. I took down the framed photo of him that had sat on my mantle for 30 years. Him as a little boy. Gap-toothed and happy, before life got complicated. I put it in a box in my closet. Not thrown away, but not on display either. Somewhere in between. That weekend, my friend invited me to a pottery class. I know it sounds weird, she said, but it's actually really fun. And there's a guy there who I think you'd like. Recently widowed, nice smile. I don't know. Patricia, you're 60, not 90. You're allowed to have a life. So I went. And she was right, it was fun. The clay was cool and smooth under my hands. The instructor was patient. And yes, there was a man there with a nice smile who asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime after class. I said yes. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It took me a moment to realize it was my son. He must have gotten a new phone, or been texting from someone else's. Mom, please, we need help. Just this once, I'll pay you back. Just this once. Like he hadn't said that 48 times before. Like I hadn't heard those exact words every month for 4 years. I typed back, I wish you the best. But I can't help you financially anymore. I hope you understand. Then I blocked the number. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, but from a strange mix of emotions I couldn't name. Loss, maybe. Grief for something that had never really existed. The relationship I'd thought I had with my son versus the one we'd actually had. But underneath that, something else. Something lighter. Freedom. The next morning I woke up and made myself a nice breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. I took my time with it, sitting at my small kitchen table, looking out the window at the tree that was just starting to bud with spring leaves. My phone was silent. My conscience was clear. My bank account was protected. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, my life was my own. Spring turned into summer. and I started to recognize myself again. Not the person I'd been before my husband died, but someone new, someone learning what it meant to live for herself. The pottery class became a regular Thursday event. I wasn't particularly good, my bowls were lopsided, but there was something satisfying about creating something with my hands. Ben, the man with the nice smile, asked me out for coffee after the third class. We talked for 2 hours about books, places we'd been, the challenges of learning pottery at our age. He made me laugh. I'd forgotten what that felt like. "Would you like to do this again?" he asked. "I would," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. My friend was delighted. "See? You're allowed to be happy." "It feels strange," I admitted. "Like I'm doing something wrong." "That's because you spent so long thinking happiness meant everyone else being happy. You forgot you're included in everyone." I thought about that a lot. How I'd spent years believing my purpose was to smooth the path for my son, even if it made mine harder, and how that had warped into something toxic that hurt us both. On a Tuesday afternoon, I was coming back from the library when I saw them. My son and his wife, getting out of an old sedan at the grocery store across from my building. They looked exhausted. She wore a cleaning service uniform. He wore the red polo of a retail chain. I watched from my window as they went inside. Part of me wondered if they'd see me, come looking for me. But they didn't. They just bought groceries. Not much, just a few bags, and drove away. I felt sad. Not guilty, but genuinely sad that it had come to this. That the relationship between mother and son had broken down so completely. But I also felt relieved. Relieved that I'd gotten out. Relieved that I wasn't standing there with my checkbook open. That evening, Ben called. "There's a concert in the park this Saturday. Would you like to go?" I started to say no, but then I stopped myself. When was the last time I'd said yes to something just because it sounded fun? "I'd love to," I said. The concert was lovely. We sat on a blanket, eating sandwiches and listening to a local jazz band. Ben knew all about jazz. His late wife had been a fan, and he told me stories about different musicians and styles. "You're easy to be around," he said as we were packing up. "So are you." I wasn't sure I'd ever feel this way again. After she died, I thought that was it for me, that I'd had my chance at happiness. "I know what you mean, but you're proof that there can be more. Aren't you? More chances. More possibilities." I thought about that on the walk home. More chances. More possibilities. For so long, I'd believed my life was about supporting someone else's possibilities. 3 months after I'd closed the door on my son, I took another step. I joined a community garden co-op. Something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Now there were. My plot was small, just 10 by 10 feet, but it was mine. I planted tomatoes and herbs just like I'd dreamed about. Every morning I'd walk to the garden and check on my plants. I'd pull weeds, water when needed, and chat with other gardeners. One of them, an older woman, became a friend. She'd been gardening for 40 years. "You're a natural," she said one day. "I don't know about that. Half my basil died last week." "Basil's fickle. But look at those tomatoes. They're thriving because you're paying attention." In August, my first tomatoes ripened. Small and not perfectly round, but mine. I picked them carefully and brought them home, where I made a simple salad. Just tomatoes, basil from the garden, olive oil, and salt. It was the best thing I'd ever tasted. That night, Ben came over for dinner. First time I'd invited him to my apartment. I was nervous, fussing over the small space. "It's perfect," he said. "It feels like you." We ate my tomato salad and talked about our days. He told me about his daughter who lived across the country. I told him about the garden, about how strange and wonderful it felt to have time that was just mine. "Do you ever hear from your son?" he asked carefully. "No, and I think that's for the best right now. It must be hard, though." "It is, but not as hard as it was to keep giving pieces of myself away until there was nothing left." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm glad you saved some pieces for yourself." As autumn approached, I realized I'd been living this new life for almost 6 months. 6 months of pottery classes and garden work and quiet dinners with Ben. 6 months of learning to say no when I meant no, and yes when I meant yes. And it felt good. It felt right. It felt like coming home to myself after a very long absence. October brought cooler weather and a phone call I hadn't expected. Not from my son directly, but from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Patricia, it's me. Please don't hang up." My son's voice, quieter than I remembered, tired. "I'm listening," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I got a new phone, new number. Had to downgrade the plan to something cheaper." He paused. I know you blocked my old one. I understand why. I didn't respond, just waited. I've been thinking a lot, about everything, about the wedding and the money and how I treated you. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I'm really truly sorry. The words I'd been waiting months to hear. But they felt hollow somehow, empty, like he was reading from a script. Why now? I asked. Because I finally get it. What I did. What we did. I read through that statement you gave me, Patricia. All those numbers. I sat down and really looked at it. $252,000. That's not just money. That's your entire life. Yes, it was. I didn't see it before. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. She kept saying you were happy to help, that this was what mothers do, that you had plenty. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting we were using you. You were using me. I know. His voice cracked. I know. And I'm so ashamed, Mom. When we got evicted, when we had to move to this tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood, when I had to take that retail job and she had to clean offices at night, that's when I started to understand what you gave up for us, what you sacrificed. I sat down on my couch, gripping the phone. Part of me wanted to soften, to tell him it was okay, to fall back into old patterns. But I didn't. Where is she in all this? I asked. Your wife. Another pause. We're not doing well. The marriage, I mean. Turns out she's not very good at being poor. Her family won't help us. They're embarrassed by how we ended up. And she blames me for that. Says I should have kept you on the hook. Kept me on the hook. Her words, not mine. That's when I realized she never cared about me. Not really. She cared about what I could provide. And when I couldn't provide anymore, when there was no more money coming from you, she started looking at me differently. I felt sad for him, genuinely sad. But I also felt vindicated. I'd seen this coming years ago, and he'd chosen to ignore it. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said. But I'm not going to help you financially. That door is closed. I know, I'm not calling for money. I'm calling because I want to try to fix this. Us. If it's even possible. I don't know if it is. Can we at least try? Can we meet somewhere? Just to talk? I thought about it for a long moment. Was I ready for this? Did I even want this? Or was this just another manipulation? A different approach to get what he wanted? I need to think about it, I said finally. Give me some time. Okay. I understand. Thank you for not hanging up. After we disconnected, I sat for a while in the quiet apartment. My first instinct was to call him back, to set up that meeting immediately. But I'd learned something over the past 6 months. To pause. To think. To not react from old patterns. Instead, I called Ben. He called, I said when he answered. My son. He wants to meet. He apologized. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Suspicious? Hopeful? Both? Both make sense. What do you want to do? That's the thing. I don't know what I want. For so long, I wanted him to see what he'd done, to apologize, to acknowledge it. And now he has, and I feel nothing. Or not nothing, but not what I expected. Maybe the relationship you had is gone, Ben said gently. And if you do rebuild something, it'll have to be different. New. I don't know if I have the energy for that. Then don't decide tonight. Sleep on it. See how you feel in the morning. I did sleep on it. Several nights, actually. And slowly, I came to a realization. I didn't owe him forgiveness. I didn't owe him a relationship. But I also didn't owe it to myself to stay angry forever. A week after his call, I texted him. We can meet. Coffee shop on Maple Street. Saturday at 2 p.m., 1 hour. He responded immediately. Thank you. I'll be there. Saturday came. I arrived early, got myself tea, and sat at a table by the window. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. If he didn't show, I'd finish my tea and go home. If he did, I'd listen. But I wouldn't make promises. I wouldn't make commitments. I would just be present and see what happened. At 2 p.m. exactly, he walked in. He looked different. Thinner. Older. Like the past year had aged him in ways that went beyond time. He sat down across from me, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Thank you for coming, he said finally. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. We sat in awkward silence. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a folded piece of paper. I wrote everything down, everything I want to say, because I was afraid I'd mess it up if I tried to just talk. He unfolded it with shaking hands and started to read. He cleared his throat and began to read, his voice unsteady. Mom, I've spent months trying to figure out when everything went wrong, when I stopped seeing you as my mother and started seeing you as a solution to my problems. I think it was gradual. Little requests that became bigger ones. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that you were a person with your own needs, your own dreams, your own life. He paused, swallowing hard. I let her convince me that you wanted to help, that you had plenty, that it was insulting not to accept your money. But that was bullshit. I knew it was wrong. Every time I called asking for rent money, I felt this knot in my stomach. But I pushed it down because it was easier than being an adult. His hands shook, making the paper tremble. The wedding was the worst of it. She told me you'd be uncomfortable around her family, that you were too simple, too different. And I let her say those things. I let her exclude you because I was too weak to stand up for you. I sat very still, listening. When you cut us off, I was angry. I thought you were being petty. But that night, after you gave me that statement, I sat in my car and read every line, every date, every amount. And I realized you weren't choosing money over family. I had chosen money over family. Years ago. He looked up at me, eyes red. Losing the apartment was hard. Taking these jobs is humiliating. Living in that neighborhood is scary. But you know what the hardest part is? Knowing I did this to myself. That I had a mother who loved me enough to give me everything, and I threw it away because I was selfish and weak. He folded the paper. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for money. I'm not even asking for a relationship if you don't want one. I just needed you to know that I understand now. What I took from you. What I destroyed. And I'm sorry. The coffee shop felt very quiet. I took a sip of my tea, buying time to think. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. I believe you mean it. I believe you've learned something. I have. I swear I have. But I need you to understand something. The relationship we had before? That's gone. I can't go back to being the person who solves all your problems. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. He nodded. I know. I don't want that either. What do you want? He thought about it. I want to know you. Not as mom who gives me money, but as Patricia. As a person. I realized I don't know anything about you. What you like to do. What makes you happy. I spent 30 years taking from you and never once asked what you needed. I joined a pottery class, I said. And a community garden. I'm dating someone. His eyes widened. You are? His name is Ben. He's a good man. He makes me laugh. That's great, Mom. Really great. I'm happy for you. Are you? Or are you just saying that? No, I mean it. You deserve to be happy. I studied his face, looking for manipulation, hidden agendas, but all I saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. If we're going to try this, I said slowly, there have to be rules. No asking for money. Ever. No guilt trips. No emergencies that require my help. You handle your own life. I'm not your safety net anymore. I understand. And it's going to be slow. Maybe we meet for coffee once a month. Maybe we talk sometimes. But I need you to respect my boundaries. If I say I need space, you give me space. I will, I promise. And your wife, I don't trust her. I don't think I ever will. So if we rebuild something, it's between you and me, not her. He looked down. We're probably getting divorced. She's been looking into it. Turns out when you marry someone for money and the money disappears, there's not much left. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right about her. I should have listened. We sat in silence, not comfortable but not hostile. Just two people trying to figure out how to be in the same space. Can I ask you something? He said finally. What? Are you happy? Now, I mean? In your life without me in it? It was a fair question. Yes, I said honestly. I am. For the first time in a very long time, I'm happy. And that's why I need you to understand that if we do this, if we try to rebuild, it can't be at the cost of what I've built for myself. My happiness doesn't depend on you anymore. And it can't. That's how it should be, he said quietly. That's how it always should have been. We left together, standing awkwardly on the sidewalk. He looked like he wanted to hug me but wasn't sure if he should. Thank you for meeting with me, he said. You're welcome. I'll text you. In a few weeks, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I'll wait to hear from you. I walked to my car alone, got in, and sat for a moment. I felt lighter somehow. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. But because I'd held my ground. I'd listened without giving in. I'd offered a possibility without offering promises. And for now, that was enough. 3 weeks passed before I texted him. Not because I was punishing him, but because I needed that time to be sure I wasn't falling back into old patterns. When I finally sent the message, coffee next Saturday if you're free, his response came within minutes. This time when we met, There was less tension. He'd gotten a haircut. He looked tired still, but more put together. He bought his own coffee and didn't ask me for anything. "How have you been?" I asked. "Okay, I guess. Still working at the store. Still living in that apartment. But I'm managing." He paused. "She moved out last week. Her parents are letting her stay with them while we figure out the divorce. How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, relieved. The last few months have been terrible. Constant fighting. It's quieter now." We talked for 45 minutes. Not about the past, not about money, but about small things. He told me about a customer at work. I told him about my pottery class, about the bowl I'd finally made that didn't collapse. When we said goodbye, it felt less awkward. Like maybe this could work. A month later, we met again. Then again the month after that. Slowly, carefully, we started to know each other as people rather than as mother and son locked in a pattern of give and take. He never asked for money, not once. Even when I could tell he was struggling, when he mentioned needing new work shoes, when he talked about skipping meals, he never asked. And I appreciated that more than I could say. In February, 6 months after our first coffee meeting, he called me on a Sunday afternoon. "Hi, Mom. I hope it's okay that I'm calling." "It's fine. What's up?" "I just wanted to tell you something. I got promoted at the store, assistant manager. It comes with a raise. And I wanted you to be one of the first people to know." There was pride in his voice. Genuine pride in something he'd accomplished himself. "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. It feels good to earn something, you know? To have something that's mine because I worked for it. After we hung up, I realized I was smiling. Not because of the promotion itself, but because he'd called to share good news, not bad. He'd called because he wanted to, not because he needed something. Spring came again. Almost a full year since I'd closed the door on him. Ben and I had gotten more serious. My garden was thriving. My pottery was improving. Life felt full. In April, my son invited me to his apartment. "I'd like you to see where I live. No pressure, but I think it would be good." I was nervous driving there. The neighborhood was rough. The building was old. But when he opened the door, I was surprised. It was small, tiny really, but it was clean. He'd made an effort. Plants on the windowsill, books on a secondhand shelf, a photo of his father on the table, the same one I kept in my closet. "It's not much," he said, "but it's mine. I pay for it myself." "It's nice," I said. "It's honest." We had dinner together, spaghetti he'd made himself. We talked about his job, my garden, Ben, his therapy sessions. "You're in therapy?" I asked. "Yeah. Started a few months ago. Sliding scale clinic nearby." I needed to figure out a lot of things. About myself. About why I made the choices I made. "That's really good. I'm proud of you for doing that." As I was leaving, he walked me to my car. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think we'll ever get back to normal? Like, will we ever have the relationship we had before?" I thought carefully. "No," I said finally. "That relationship was broken. It wasn't healthy for either of us. But maybe we can have something better. Something where we're both whole people who choose to be in each other's lives." He nodded slowly. "I think I'd like that better anyway." Me too. Driving home, I felt something settle in my chest. Not quite forgiveness. That was still too big, too complicated. But maybe acceptance. Acceptance that he'd hurt me. Acceptance that he was trying to change. Acceptance that we were both imperfect people doing our best. That night, I called Ben and told him about the visit. "Sounds like progress," he said. "It is. Slow progress. But that's okay. Fast is what got us into trouble in the first place." 2 months later, in June, my son showed up at the community garden. I looked up from my tomato plants and there he was, standing at the entrance looking uncertain. "I hope it's okay that I came," he said. "You mentioned you were here on Saturday mornings. I wanted to see it." Ruth, my gardening friend, gave me a questioning look. I nodded. I showed him around. The tomatoes I'd planted, the herbs that were finally thriving, the small plot that had become my sanctuary. "It's nice here," he said. "Peaceful." "It is. I can see why you love it." We stood there together in the morning sun, surrounded by growing things, and for the first time in a very long time, it felt like we might actually make it through this. Not back to what we were, but forward to something new. August brought changes. My son's divorce was finalized. He called to tell me, his voice steady. "It's done. We signed the papers yesterday. How do you feel?" "Relieved mostly. We didn't have much to divide. She took the car. I kept the furniture. It was quick." "And how is she doing?" He paused. "I don't know. She unfriended me on everything. I heard she's working at her dad's office now. I didn't say what I was thinking, that she'd landed on her feet, just like I'd expected. Are you okay? I asked instead. Yeah, I am. It's strange. I thought I loved her, but I think I mostly loved the idea of being taken care of having someone who made me feel like I was more than I was. You were always more than you were. You just couldn't see it. I'm starting to see it now. We talked for a while longer, and when we hung up, I felt something shift. He was handling this, really handling it, without me swooping in to fix things. He was becoming an adult finally, at 31. That same week, Ben and I were having dinner at his place when he reached across the table and took my hand. I've been thinking, he said, about us, about the future. I know we're both older. We've both been married before, but I'd like more of this. More dinners, more mornings together, more life together. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you to think about it. No pressure. But yes, I looked at him, this kind, patient man who'd never asked me for anything except my company, who laughed at my lopsided pottery and helped me weed my garden. I'd like that, I said. I'd like that a lot. We decided to take it slow. I'd keep my apartment for a few months while we tried living together. But the decision felt right. Solid. Like something I was choosing because I wanted it. In September, I told my son about Ben and the plan to move in together. We were having lunch near his work. That's great, Mom. Really great. I'm happy for you. You sure? It's okay if it's weird. It's not weird. You deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who treats you well. He smiled. Can I meet him sometime? Officially? You want to meet him? Yeah. If that's okay. I'd like to know the person who makes you smile like that. We set up a dinner for the following week. I was nervous, but it went well. Ben was warm without being pushy. My son was respectful and genuinely interested. They talked about baseball, about books, about everything. And watching them interact, I realized I'd built this. This new life, these new relationships. I'd built it from the ruins of what I'd lost. In October, almost exactly 2 years after the wedding that changed everything, I signed the lease termination on my apartment. I was really doing this. The night before the move, I sat in my empty apartment one last time. I'd lived here 8 years. This was where I'd grieved my husband, where I'd enabled my son, where I'd hit rock bottom and then climbed back up. My phone buzzed. A text from my son. Need any help with the move tomorrow? I smiled. Ben's got it covered. But thank you for offering. Okay. Proud of you, Mom. I know that's weird to say, but I am. I looked at that message for a long time. Proud of you. When was the last time someone had said that to me? The next day, as Ben and I carried boxes into his house, our house now, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not just happiness or relief. It was possibility. The sense that life wasn't over. That there were still chances to grow, to change, to become. That 61 wasn't the end of anything. It was just another beginning. That evening, after everything was unpacked, Ben and I sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. How does it feel? He asked. Like coming home, I said. Like I've been walking a long time and finally found a place to rest. You can rest here as long as you want. I know. Thank you. We sat in comfortable silence, and I thought about how far I'd come. From that terrible phone call 2 years ago, it was just for important people, to this moment. From feeling worthless to feeling valued. From giving everything away to keeping enough for myself. The road hadn't been easy. There had been nights I'd cried, days I'd doubted myself, moments when I'd wanted to give in, but I hadn't. I'd held firm, and look where it had led me. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my son. Dinner next week? I'd like to hear about the new place. Sounds good. Wednesday? Perfect. I put my phone away and reached for Ben's hand. Somewhere in the distance, crickets were singing. The air smelled like autumn. And for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't worried about tomorrow. I was just here, in this moment, exactly where I belonged. Thanksgiving arrived with an invitation I hadn't expected. Would you and Ben like to come to my place for dinner? My son asked during one of our monthly coffee meetings. I know it's not much, and I'm not the best cook, but I'd like to try. I looked at him across the table. He was nervous. His hands were fidgeting with his coffee cup. We'd love to, I said. What can we bring? Nothing. I want to do this. I've been watching cooking videos. I think I can pull it off. Ben and I arrived at his apartment on Thanksgiving afternoon. The building still looked rough, but when my son opened the door, the apartment was transformed. He He'd cleaned everything until it sparkled. There were candles on the table, music playing softly, and something that actually smelled good was cooking in the tiny kitchen. "Wow," I said. "You've been busy." "I wanted it to be nice. Come in." The dinner wasn't perfect. The turkey was a little dry, the mashed potatoes lumpy, but he'd tried. Really tried. And sitting there at his small table, eating food he'd made with his own money, in an apartment he paid for himself, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride in my son. "This is really good," Ben said, and he meant it. "You did a great job." "Thanks. I've been practicing. Turns out cooking for yourself is cheaper than takeout." He smiled, self-aware in a way he hadn't been before. After dinner, while Ben helped with dishes, my son pulled me aside. "Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something." My stomach tightened instinctively. Old habits. "What is it?" "Nothing bad, I promise. I just wanted to tell you that I've been saving money. Not a lot, but some. And when I'm in a better place financially, like, a lot better, I want to try to pay you back. Not all of it. I know I can never pay back everything, but something. As a gesture." I shook my head. "You don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to, but I want to. Not now, obviously, but someday. When I can. I want you to know that I see it. The debt. The real debt. Not just the money. And I'm trying to be worthy of a second chance." I looked at this man, my son, but also someone new. Someone still figuring it out, but at least trying. "You're already worthy," I said quietly. "The fact that you're thinking about it, that you're working on yourself, that's enough. I don't need the money back. I need you to be okay, to be healthy, to build a life that makes you happy. I'm getting there, slowly, but I'm getting there." Ben called from the kitchen, and the moment passed. But it stayed with me through the rest of the evening, through the pie my son had bought from a bakery, through the comfortable conversation. As we were leaving, my son hugged me, a real hug, not the awkward sidearm thing we'd been doing. A full, tight hug. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Thank you for giving me a chance to do this. Thank you for inviting us." In the car on the way home, Ben reached over and took my hand. "That went well," he said. "It did. Better than I expected. He's a good kid, making his way." He is. Finally. We drove in silence, and then Ben asked the question I'd been asking myself all evening. "Do you forgive him?" "Completely, I mean." I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know if forgiveness is the right word. It's more like acceptance, maybe. I accept that he hurt me. I accept that he's trying to change. I accept that we'll never have the relationship we had before. And that's okay because that relationship wasn't healthy anyway. That's probably healthier than forgiveness. Maybe. All I know is that sitting there tonight, watching him try so hard, I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel used. I just felt like a mom watching her son grow up, even if it's happening later than it should have. At home, I changed into comfortable clothes and made tea. Ben was already in bed reading. I sat on the couch for a while, thinking about the past 2 years. 2 years since that terrible phone call. 2 years since I discovered I wasn't important enough to be invited to my own son's wedding. 2 years since I'd made the hardest decision of my life. If someone had told me then where I'd be now, living with a wonderful man, having regular coffee dates with my son, feeling genuinely happy, I wouldn't have believed them. The pain had been too fresh. But here I was, healed. Not perfectly, not completely, but healed enough to live fully, to love cautiously, to hope realistically. My phone buzzed. A text from my son. "Thanks again for coming today. It meant a lot. Also, forgot to tell you, I got another promotion. Department manager now. Can I tell you about it over coffee next week?" I smiled as I typed back. "Congratulations, I'm proud of you. Coffee sounds great." And I meant it. All of it. The congratulations, the pride, the willingness to hear about his life. Because somewhere along the way, in the slow, painful process of rebuilding, we'd found something new. Not what we had before, but something better. Something based on respect and boundaries and mutual effort. Something real. I finished my tea, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow I'd go to my garden. Tomorrow I'd work on my pottery. Tomorrow I'd have a life that was mine, full of people who chose to be in it, and whom I chose in return. Tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that, I'd be okay. Better than okay. I'd be free. 1 year later, I stood in the backyard of the small house Ben and I had bought together. Not the countryside estate I'd once dreamed of, but something better. Something chosen together, affordable and comfortable. The garden was thriving. My tomatoes were legendary now. I'd expanded beyond vegetables into flowers, and the yard was full of color. "Mom, we're here." I turned to see my son coming through the gate carrying a dish covered in foil. Behind him was a woman I'd met twice before, someone he'd been dating for 6 months. She was kind, sensible, and had her own job. "Hi, sweetheart. Come in." Ben just pulled the turkey out. It had become a tradition. Thanksgiving at our place. My son bringing a dish he'd made himself. Conversation that flowed easily, without tension. As we ate, I watched him interact with his girlfriend. The way he listened when she talked. The way he offered to help without being asked. The way he split the check when they went out. She'd mentioned it once, proudly. He'd grown up. Finally. Fully grown up at 32. After dinner, my son helped me clean up. "How's work?" I asked. "Really good. They're talking about promoting me to regional manager. It would mean a raise and a company car." He paused. "It feels good, you know? Earning it. I'm proud of you." "I know. You tell me every time." He smiled. "But I never get tired of hearing it." He put down the dish he was drying. "Mom, I need to tell you something. I've been in therapy for 2 years now, and my therapist thinks I'm ready to make amends properly. Not just apologizing, but making things right where I can." My heart beat faster. "Okay. I've been saving money. A little every month. I have $5,000 set aside, and I want to give it to you. Not as payment for what you gave me, I know I can never repay that, but as a gesture, to show I understand what you sacrificed. Sweetheart, you don't have to. Please, let me do this. For me, not for you. I need to know I'm not that person anymore. The person who only took. I need to be someone who gives back." I looked at him. The boy who'd been so lost was gone. In his place stood a man who understood responsibility, who valued relationships over money, who was building a life based on integrity. "Okay," I said softly. "If it's important to you." "It is. Thank you." He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a handwritten letter. "Don't read it now," he said quickly. "Read it later, when you're alone." That night, after everyone had left and Ben had gone to bed, I sat in my favorite chair and opened the letter. The words blurred through my tears. He apologized for everything. The using. The wedding. Treating me like a bank instead of a person. He thanked me for loving him enough to stop enabling him. He promised he was different now. He said he was grateful for the second chance and proud to be my son. I read it 3 times. Tears of grief for what was lost, joy for what was found, and relief that we'd both survived. In the morning, I deposited the check. Not because I needed it, but because accepting it was part of his healing. I used part of it to take Ben on a trip. The rest went into savings. Not for emergencies or other people, but for me. That afternoon, sitting in my garden with dirt under my fingernails and sun on my face, I thought about the price I'd paid for my dignity. $252,000. Years of being used. The pain of being excluded from my own son's wedding. It had been expensive. Devastatingly so. But sitting there in my garden, in the home I shared with someone who loved me, with a son who'd finally learned what it meant to be a man, with a life that was fully mine, I realized something. I'd paid the price. But what I'd bought with it was priceless. My freedom, my self-respect, my understanding that I deserved to be treated with dignity, my knowledge that I was enough, all by myself. The wedding had happened 3 years ago. 3 years since I'd learned I wasn't important enough. 3 years of pain and growth and slow, careful healing. And now, looking at my life, really looking at it, I could say with complete honesty, I was important. I always had been. I just finally learned to see it. My phone buzzed. A text from my son. "Thanks for today. I love you." I smiled and typed back. "I love you too. See you next month?" Wouldn't miss it. I put my phone away and went back to my garden. There were tomatoes to pick, herbs to trim, and a whole life to live. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, that life was entirely, beautifully, perfectly mine.